Wnba analyst reveals two national players pulling strings with Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever front office. About winning, said Indiana Fever president Kelly Krauskopf. The season Fever are not just getting ready to compete, they're here to win. And after the additions of veteran stars like dewanna and Natasha, it is obvious they are intent on constructing a championship team. But here's the key question. To what extent did the Fever's star players have input on these major moves? Did Caitlin Clark and her teammates help shape the team's future? 2025 season, only 5 players remain from last year's roster. Rookie sensation Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Damaris Dantas, Lexi Hull, and Kelsey Mitchell. A new head coach has also been brought in. Stephanie White succeeds Christy Sides, who was fired after 3 seasons. These changes, along with the team's off-season moves, indicate that the Fever are preparing for a serious title push. As the Fever get ready for the interestingly, Fever didn't make these decisions in isolation. President krauskopf revealed how their young stars were part of the process of putting together this roster. They told the front office to protect our locker room and protect the culture that we got started, said krauskopf. Rachel Wnba shed some light on how big of a role Caitlin Clark and her teammates had in these moves. Looking at all the different reports that were coming out, it seems like Caitlin Clark obviously had a big voice in which players they were bringing in. Aaliyah Boston had a big voice on what players they were bringing in as well, and Kelsey Mitchell also had that voice. In other words, the players weren't just sitting back and waiting for decisions. They were at the table, helping steer the ship. However, when asked about the extent of the Fever's franchise players, Clark, Boston, and Mitchell, who were in the decision-making process, krauskopf gave an interesting perspective. "You always want to pick the brains of the players," she said. "I did it with Tamika Catchings and others. It's not necessarily asking for their sign-off. It's more of a let's talk about this together," she noted. Subsequently, Boston, who was drafted No. 1 overall by the Fever in 2023, also weighed in on the front office's approach. "I think the front office did a great job of including us with who they were looking at and how they thought they would fit with us, which I think is always super important," she said. The 2024 Roadie 2 has expressed excitement for what the new roster is shaping up to be. "I think it is exactly what we needed," are her words. This shows just how crucial it was for the players to feel like part of the process, ensuring that new additions would mesh with the existing squad. Caitlin Clark and teammates make Fever a top destination. It goes without saying that Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell have made the Fever one of free agency's hottest destinations. High-profile players such as Bonner and Howard were drawn towards that competitive edge. With these new signings, there is no doubt that the Fever's roster is deeper and more dangerous than it has ever been. The team is obviously being considered a championship contender, and with the gaps they have filled, rightly so. It's worth remembering the Fever, despite making their first playoffs in 8 years, had glaring issues last year. They ranked 11th out of 12 teams in defensive rating, compiling a concerning 107.5 defensive rating, the second worst number in the league. So the franchise decided to fill the gap. All-Star will add length and disruption to the Fever defense. The Fever had a productive free agency period, bolstering its defense. 3-time Wnba champion and 2019 Defensive Player of the Year Natasha brings defensive versatility and championship experience. Dewanna, a 2-time Wnba champion and a 6-time. The franchise also added Sophie Cunningham, best known for her 3-point shot-making ability. And the Fever's front court will get a boost from Brianna Turner, a 2-time Wnba all-defensive first-team selection and elite shot blocker and rebounder, all of which will go a long way toward ameliorating the Fever's defensive deficiencies. With these clever moves, the Fever are making their intention plain. They're in it to win it. It is a great time to be a Fever fan.